What's going on, everybody? I guess we start off with the norm. Can let me know if you can see me and hear me okay and all that good stuff. It's good to be back. Been what didn't come on at all last week and didn't come on yesterday. All right, great, thank you. Was working on they released a new course yesterday, so I was working on that. Just pretty busy. Didn't really have time to come on, and then yesterday I got my second shot, so my arm's not doing too hot right now. So I wanted to, but I didn't want to go another entire week without coming on. So I thought, well, what could I do that wouldn't be too difficult for my left hand? So just do some fingerstyle stuff. That's it's pretty cool. Sounding riffs from songs, but they're pretty easy to play. And a couple of them are like very similar to each other, but this just, in my opinion, if you want to play something that sounds and looks more difficult than what you're actually doing, fingerstyle is the way to go. Because I mean, there's so many cool things that you can do that are really easy to play, but it sounds harder, and it looks like you're doing a lot because you're moving all over the place. So to the untrained eye, they think that you're doing something more than you really are. So it's kind of pretty cool. yeah, Rusty, this is your new acoustic guitar. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at a few different things, and as usual, in the description there's a link that you can get the tabs for what I'm going over tonight. So I encourage you to get those, so that way you can follow along and have them for future use. So with these, I'm going to show you how to play them, then I'm going to kind of break them down a little bit and just kind of explain, whoa, what happened there? Kind of explain how they, like, what makes them tick, what's in there that makes it sound the way that it does. And hopefully with this, then you'll be able to take the concepts from this and maybe come up with some of your own things. So a lot of these are based off of dyads. And I did a live stream, I don't know, it's been 2 or 3 months ago, maybe, about dyads. And so what dyads are is it's just a 2-note chord. So like, you probably already know, like your power chord, that fifth, that's a dyad there, but you have fifths, fourths, thirds, major thirds, minor thirds, sixths, minor sixths. You have a whole bunch of different ones that you can use from. And so a lot of people call them double stops as well. It's just dyads, is just what I've always called them. All right, so the first one we're going to look at, hopefully you've gotten your tabs and stuff. I'll kind of go a little slow right here in case you need a minute to get those. But it's from a song called Coldest Winter's Night by Camelot. So Camelot's a band that, maybe you're not really familiar with them, but they're an awesome band, and they have like really, really cool stuff. Can't say enough, good stuff about them. But this is a really cool song, but it's like really, really simple to play. So with it, we start off, we've got this this dyad here that would be, if we're just playing, well, let me break it down more. So I'm on the 7th fret of the D string with my 3rd finger, and then I'm on the 5th fret of the G string with my 1st finger, and I'm playing the B and the high E strings open. So if we just played just these 2 notes that I'm fretting, if I'm the notes that I'm fretting on the D and the G string, if you look just at that, this is an A, and then here we got our minor third. So this shape is a minor third. So I'm not going to go all into that because, like I said, I already did this. So if you just look back through the live streams, you'll be able to find it easy enough. So with this, since we've got these other notes in here, this is actually a C major 7 with an A in the bass. So I'm just playing just on those strings. And so I'm doing this fingerstyle. So I'm using my thumb to play the D string, and my 1st finger to play the G string, my 2nd finger to play the B string, and my 3rd finger to play the high E string. Now, hopefully you've already had a little bit of experience with doing finger picking. If you've never tried doing it before and stuff, then even though these are simple, it would, you know, be challenging for you because, you know, if you don't know how to do the technique. So I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on that part of it itself, but just a couple of pointers for those of you that you know, have little to no experience with this. When you, like, if you're playing with a pick, you know, you're holding your pick, you got the crook of your arm resting on the bout here of the guitar, and then you're down here so you can strum, right? So when you're doing it with fingerstyle, I do the same thing. I still rest my arm there. And when I pick the strings, you don't want it to be where you're like pulling your arm back like that. You want your arm to stay in place, and you just want your fingers to do the work. So the thumb, it's just simply picking down. And then for the G, B, and E string where you're using your fingers, you want to just pull your finger back like this, like you're pulling a trigger. See how it's keeping my hand in place? You don't want where you're like doing this, because the more movement you do, you know, it's just like with picking with a guitar pick. You know, less is more. The less you have to move, the better off you are. So hopefully that helps for any of you that finger picking is not easy for me. Well, how much of it have you really done? Like, how much have you really worked with it? Because it's actually fairly easy once you get, you know, you get this idea down, you know, do some practice with it. If you go over to guitarcontrol.com, I actually did a mini course for them that's just a like finger picking 101, and the course only costs $1. So head on over to guitarcontrol.com and you can check it out. I think it's called Introduction to Finger Picking. All right, so for this Coldest Winter's Night, we start off with that chord like we already talked about, and the picking pattern. Oh, okay. So here's another thing too. So with finger picking, if you're like looking at with like classical guitar, Spanish guitar, your thumb is represented by the letter P. Your first finger is by the letter I, middle finger the letter M, and your third finger the middle A. And then you can actually, some people actually use their pinky. I never gotten into that using my pinky. In fact, I never even knew it was a thing until, you know, a couple of years ago. So it's not always done that way with the, you know, PIMA, but I really recommend that you learn that, and I go over that in that course. So the picking pattern for this is P-I-M-I-A-I-M-I. So thumb first, middle first, third first, middle first. Or if you want to think about it as strings, D, G, B, G, E, G, B, G. I think it's just much easier if you learn the PIMA thing and just kind of, you know, use that. Oh, hi, Alan from Alabama. Cool. Oh, good. I'm glad you figured it out. Don't feel bad. I can't figure out how to do half of this stuff either with all the stuff with the computer. It's crazy. All right, so that's basically the picking pattern that's going to be for this entire thing. So for this riff, it's 4 measures long, and then it's just repeated, you know, over and over again. So the first measure, we're on that C major 7 over A. Then on the second measure, we switch chords and we go to C major 7 over A flat. So all we're going to do is we're going to move the note on the 7th fret of the D string. We're going to move it to the 6th fret. So keep your first finger where it is, and then just use your middle finger to come down a half step, and then the same exact picking pattern. All right, so that's the first 2 measures. And then we're going to go to C major 7 over G. So in case you haven't noticed here, we've just got this sequence where we're just going to keep moving the bass note down chromatically. So when we go to that particular one, it's going to put the bass note, move it from the 6th fret on the D string to the 5th fret. So when you do that, you're going to have to switch your hand position. So what I do is I come down with my second finger to the 5th fret of the D string and then switch out my first finger for my 3rd finger for the 5th fret of the G string. And then the last chord is C major 7 over F. So now we're going to move that from the 5th fret on the D string to the 3rd fret. Darren, please teach some Nazareth. Alan, okay, I thought I recognized your name. I've seen your comment on a couple of the YouTube videos. Yeah, that can be arranged. Actually, I did the riff from Hair of the Dog and Love Hurts on the YouTube, just on the channel, not in live streams, but just on the channel. So if you just go to this YouTube channel and just look through the previous videos, it wasn't very long ago. You won't have to scroll very far to find it. But I saw your comment a day or two ago, and you mentioned a couple other songs specifically, so I'll look into that. Okay, so that's all 4 measures. And then it just repeats. Yeah, see, so not too terribly tough, but it just sounds really good. And to me, it just sounds like there's more going on than there really is, especially if you think about what you're doing with your left hand and what you're doing with your right hand for that matter, since it's just the same pattern over and over and over again. All right. So the next one that I want to look at, oh, thank you. Crit, is that Crit? K-R-I-T. I'm thinking that must be some kind of a nickname or a slang or something, since the R is also capital, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. So the next one I want to show you is it's on Motley Crue's album, Shout at the Devil. It's called God Bless the Children of the Beast. It was like a really short, just little instrumental thing, kind of a weird thing they put on there. But the reason that I want to show you this is because it is really, really similar to the one that we just looked at. So I just kind of want to show you how you can take more or less just the same thing, and just by doing a couple of little variations to it, you can make it sound like a lot different. So this one starts off with the first 2 measures of this is exactly the same as the first measure of Coldest Winter's Night. So again, we're on the 7th fret of the D string with my 3rd finger, and the 5th fret of the G string with my 1st finger, and the B and high E strings are open. And for those of you that may have just joined, there are tabs available for this. There's a link in the description. All right, so it's the exact same picking pattern. But the difference with this one is that we're going to do 2 chords, or 2 measures per chord. So that's the first 2 measures. Then we're going to go to an E minor over G. So we're going to move from our 3rd finger from being on the 7th fret of the D string. We're going to move it down to the 5th fret, and then we're going to be on the 4th fret of the G string. Now, the way I like to do it is with these 2 fingers. But more than likely, you will probably prefer to do it like this with your 2nd and 1st finger. I don't know why that I do it with my 3rd and 4th finger. There's several things, because it might be because I learned this like when I was like 13 years old. And I just think that, long before YouTube, all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of did it on my own. And for whatever reason, that was with the fingers that I thought was the way to do it. So first 2 measures, then we move down to the other chord, same picking pattern, 2 measures. Now we're going to move down again, and this time it's a I can't even read what it. It's too small, right? I think it says E suspended 4 over F. But anyhow, you just take this shape and you just move it down a whole step. So now we're on the 3rd fret of the D string and the 2nd fret of the G string. B and E strings are still open, still the exact same picking pattern. 2 measures. Then we're going to move that shape down a whole step again. So now we're on the 2nd fret of the D string and the 1st fret of the G string. So we have 1 measure of this. And then we have a half of a measure of it, and we're going to just go the D, G, B string back to the G. So just the... And then we're going to come up and we're going to do the chord shape that we did originally, but a half step flat. So we're on the 6th fret of the D string with my 3rd finger, and the 4th fret of the G string with my 1st finger. And that's kind of like the turnaround for it. So we're like, and then it just repeats. So that's like basically the whole thing. Now, that one's, it's a little quicker. I think it's about... just like that. Like I said, not too terribly difficult, but it is a pretty, cool riff. But so you can see that between those 2 songs, they're very, very, very similar. And well, as much so as that the first measure of both of them is identical. It's exactly the same thing. Jerry Reed was the king of fingerpicking. Well, I don't know about that, if he was the king of fingerpicking, but Jerry Reed was definitely a guitar icon. His country chops are next level. When I got into him a few years ago, it's because I started getting into country, wanting to do the whole chicken picking thing, and that dude is just unbelievable. Some of the stuff he did was just so hard. And what's really awesome about it is that he did a lot of studio work in the in the 60s and in the 70s, and he never really wanted, he didn't want to be credited for it. He just wanted the paycheck. And I just thought that was kind of cool that, he, no ego at all, but the guy was, super, super amazing player. Chet Atkins. Yeah. When I was a kid, my dad, it was really funny. Music was weird in my house when I was growing up. My parents didn't they listened to classical music. So I was always listening to classical music, from as far back as I can remember. When they would listen to music together, it was classical music. But if it was my mom just listening to music, just what she wanted to listen to, she would always listen to Roger Whittaker. And my dad would put on either march music, or he had a bunch of Chet Atkins records and Marty Robbins records. And so I had a lot of influence from that old style like that. Chet Atkins is he's, in my opinion, arguably the greatest guitarist that's ever lived. Some of his stuff is so ridiculously hard. When I was 14, my dad made a deal with me and told me that if I could learn how to play his version of Malagueña, that he would buy me any guitar I wanted. Well, here we are many, many years later, and I still can't play his version of Malagueña. Roy Clark. Yeah, another one. I used to watch Hee Haw with my dad, and he was amazing. March music, like marching band music. I don't know why he was into that, but he really was. It was really, really strange. Let's I didn't realize you could play anything besides headbanging tunes. Okay, cool. All right. All right, so now I'm on to, if you've downloaded the tabs, this would be page 2. And Mark Knopfler, yeah, Mark Knopfler, he's another great player. His finger style is really unique, I think, and a lot of it's really, really hard. Dude, Hee Haw was awesome. They always had killer musicians on there, you know, just tons of great. I love bluegrass music, and they always had just like the greatest players on that show. I've been actually trying to find it where I can watch it now, and there's clips on YouTube, but I can't really find the show. Yeah, I'm sure Jerry was the stuff, man. Pink. So you're asking me if I know how to play any Pink songs? Because if it is, the answer is yes. All right, so the next one we're going to look at, speaking of like kind of weird off things, but this next one is a song called "Hurt" by Christina Aguilera, and you're probably all like, "What the hell?" Like, you know, Christina Aguilera. This is a really, really cool song, and it's actually a piano song, but I transposed it for guitar. This one is not only a cool one that's you know, fun to play, sounds good, you know, not as hard as it looks and stuff. It's actually kind of a really great exercise from some just for transitioning stuff with your left hand. So we start off with this, and like I said, this was originally done on the piano. I just noticed that the chord on the first one isn't there. It's actually an E minor. So we're not doing the full E minor, we're just doing the top end of it. So I just use my second finger for this. And so you put your second finger onto the second fret of the D string, and then we're going to play the G, B, and E strings open, high E strings open. So the picking pattern for this is exactly like the last two that we looked at. So P, I, M, I, A, I, M, I. And it's all eighth notes. So you can count like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I don't play piano. I've just like figured out how to play them on guitar. I actually have a piano that I inherited, and I've sat down and tried. I taught myself how to play the like part of Moonlight Sonata, and that's it. I mean, it's piano. I have the utmost respect for anybody that can actually read piano music and play it, because you know you're reading one staff for your left hand and another staff for your right hand, and you're reading both at the same time. I think that's far beyond my brain's capacity to do that. So we start off here, the E minor, pro transposer, yeah, hardly. So that's the first measure, and like I said, I missed it, but it should say on there that this is an E minor. Then we're going to do E minor over E flat. So all we're going to do is move this note from the second fret of the D string to the first fret. So I just use my first finger to do it. So you could actually put both of your fingers down if you wanted to, and then you just have to lift one off. And then back to the E minor. So that's the first three measures. Then on the fourth measure, we go to a C. So it's just your regular old C chord that you already know. So this is another reason why using your middle finger here is good on that first chord, because when we come back to that E minor on the third measure, we drop to a C. So your middle finger is already where it needs to be to do that C chord. So all we have to do is just drop our other two fingers. Now, the picking pattern stays the same, but what happens now is that we're going to, with your picking hand, we're going to move down one set of strings. So right now, your thumb's playing the D string, first finger's on G, second finger's on B, and third finger's on E. We're going to just move it down So now your thumb is playing the A string, your first finger's on the D string, and your second finger is on the G string, and your third finger is on the B string. And it's the same picking pattern, but you're just on those different strings. So you're going to find that a lot in a lot of finger picking songs, that the pattern might be one particular pattern, but depending upon what chord they're playing, they just move it. Or sometimes like the high strings will stay the same and your thumb will just change to a different bass note, especially if it's something that has like an alternating bass line, like something like that. All right, so that's the first four measures. So you play the C and pick the others. Now you're going to pick on the C. I was just showing that I was just strumming it so you can hear that it's a C chord. All right, so first four measures. Then on the fifth measure, we go to an A minor. So to transition from the C to the A minor, all you have to do is move your third finger from the third fret of the A string to the second fret of the D string, the second fret of the G string. Same exact picking pattern that we did on C. Then we're going to go to a B7. So when we do this B7, transitioning from the A minor, we're going to move our first finger from the first fret of the B string. We're going to move it down so it's on the first fret of the D string. And then we're going to move our second finger from the second fret of the D string to the second fret of the A string. And your third finger, ring finger, does not have to move. So again, that's why this is like a cool thing to play through, aside from it just sounding really nice, is that it's a good practice for transitioning through all these chords without having to take off all of your fingers, because that makes a huge difference. That's like one of the things that I see it a lot, just like with my private students and stuff, is that they'll, when they're playing a song and they got the rhythm, the strumming, everything, but then when they go to change chords, they're so slow at changing chords because they're trying to move one finger at a time. You really want to try to develop muscle memory to get, where you can make all your changes with moving all your fingers together. Okay, so when we go to that B7, now, and if you'll notice here, when doing the B7, I've got my my fourth finger on the second fret of the high E. We don't even play the high E string. I just do that because that's the muscle memory I have for playing this chord. Same picking pattern that we did on C and A minor. And then it just starts over again. So when we start over, we just simply remove all of our fingers and move our middle finger from the A string to the D string. And then it just transitions that way. It's very smooth all the way through. Just like that. So again, pretty easy to play, but it just sounds really nice. It's very melodic, really pretty sounding, but it's just not very difficult to play. Now, maybe on the piano it's hard to play. I mean, I picked out all the notes individually from what they're doing on the piano, so I can't imagine that it would be difficult to play on the piano. But then again, I don't know squat about the piano other than I'm very intimidated by it. Trying to play it. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions about anything that we've gone over thus far? I don't know if I should have stayed reading musical notes. All I do now is tabs. Okay, so you learned how to read music, but then you just stopped doing it because of tabs. Is that what you're saying? Hey, Rusty. That was your comment. You is that what you're saying? Is that you learned how to read music, but you don't use it anymore because of reading tabs? Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm getting out of it anyway. So, well, let me give you my opinion on that. I learned how to read music when I first started taking guitar lessons when I was a kid. Okay, yeah. So you started out reading. Yeah. So, and I can sight read in first position pretty well. So here's the thing. If you are, man, I wish there was some way that I could like share my screen here. So hopefully if you're looking at your transcription, like the one we're looking at here that I'm doing here, hurt. If you look up at the notation on the music, the very first note that you see there, it's like the very, not the tab, but the actual note. It's like the very bottom line runs right through the center of it. Well, that note is an E. So if you're playing like the piano, there is only one key on the piano that is represented for that note. But on a fretted instrument, there are multiple places. That particular E we're looking at right there can be played there. It can also be played on the 7th fret of the A string or the 12th fret of the E string. It's the same note. So if you don't have the tab, when you looked at that, you would be like, well, do they want me to play it here, here, or here? So you have to do what's called, you learn how to read in positions. And it's extremely complicated. And I started doing it when I was doing classical lessons. And then I got kind of, just overwhelmed with it. And then that was around the time when I first was introduced to tab. It was I'd been a Diet Coke guy and I switched to tab. No, just kidding. I in a guitar magazine. I bought this guitar magazine because Randy Rhoads was on the cover of it, and it had a transcription for Flying High Again in it, and it was all in tab. And I looked at it and I didn't understand it, and I was like super overwhelmed with that. But then after I figured out how to use it, it became pretty easy. So if you're looking at your transcription, I always do transcriptions like this with the music up there too, because if you don't necessarily need to learn how to read the notes. I mean, it's good to know what the notes are just on the staff, but as far as like, learning them, below the staff with ledger lines and above the staff with ledger lines, I mean, it's somewhat useful, but not for playing music. You'd be really hard pressed to find to go buy a songbook that isn't in tab, that's just in manuscript. Because everything is in tab now, but the tab itself doesn't tell you the timing. So if you were looking at this and you didn't have the sheet music, and I'd said, oh, this is all in eighth notes, you wouldn't know if it's supposed to be played all evenly spaced like that, or if it's supposed to be, I mean, you wouldn't know. So what I do with my students is that I require that they learn how to actually identify quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, whole notes, all that kind of stuff, and how to count. And then if they, really want to learn how to read, they can go, then we'll go through with that. But it doesn't, I can't even think of the last time I taught somebody how to read music. It's been years. All right. So let's see here. What do we got? Oh, what we have next is actually the last, the last song that we're going to look at. This one's longer than the previous ones. A couple of things in it that could be a little bit more challenging. I still need the notation. How else would you know how to play the note? If you're referring to timing, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, so this is another Camelot song. This is the one I was playing right when I went live. It's called A Sailorman's Hymn, and it's a really cool song. It's not hard to play. It's, you know, again, it sounds more difficult than it is. We're really going to be moving around a lot, but this is also just made up of dyads. But all these dyads are just exclusively on the B and high E string. So we're going to be fretting notes on the B and high E string, and then our bass note is just the open low E string. So the very first one we're going to do here, I'm on the 7th fret of the high E string with my 2nd finger, and I'm on the 8th fret of the B string with my 3rd finger. So this one's a little bit different too, because it's also in 3/4 time. So, you know, like each measure has just got 3 beats. So this is 8th notes. So we're going to start off, we play the both E strings at the same time. And the bass note is actually in the low melody, and then the other note, whoops, to the B string. And then back to the high E, back to the B, back to the, so it's like that. 1 and 2 and 3 and like that. So that's pretty much kind of the picking style for it throughout the whole piece. Now we're gonna, when we get that, so that's the first measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and then for the next measure, we're going to move this shape down. So now we're gonna, and this is why I'm using these 2 fingers. This isn't just because of my, you know, quirky thing I was talking about earlier. You want to use these 2 fingers because the next chord, we're going to slide down a half step, but the note on the high E string goes down a whole step. So when we look at this here, this is a major 3rd dyad because that shape is always a major 3rd. Now we're going to move down, and it is a minor 3rd, but we're still going to do the same picking. So we got like that. Then for the 3rd measure, we're going to move that shape down like how we're doing it, the minor 3rd, a whole step. So now our first finger is on the 3rd fret of the high E, 3rd finger is on the 5th fret of the B string. So that's like the first 3 measures. All right. Now on measure 4, we're going to move down a half step again. Well, our first finger is moving down a half step, but the note on the B string is moving down a whole step. We're doing a major 3rd again. And we're just going to pluck just the high E and B strings together as quarter notes. So 1, and then back to 3 and 5 for beat 2, and then back up to 5 and 7 for beat 3. So, and then it kind of starts over again. So that's like the first 4 measures. Right, and then starting on the, so that'd be the 5th measure. 5th, 6th, and 7th measures are the same as the first 3. The difference is that on the 8th measure, instead of doing, it's just going to be just that dyad as a dotted half note. So dotted half note gets 2 beats. If you put a dot after a note, you just add 50% of its value. Since we're in 3/4 time, we can't put a whole note because a whole note's 4 beats. So this is 3 beats. So 2, you know, half note plus quarter note. So that's the first 8 measures. And then it starts over, and it's very similar, but it has a couple of other little things that are in there that are also the reason why I chose the fingers for my left hand that I'm using with this. All right. Well, thanks, Crit. Thanks for tuning in. But remember, this is if you can catch the end on the rerun. So when you get done with work, just go to the channel and you'll be able to watch the replay of this. Okay. So the first 8 measures. So starting on measure 9, back to kind of the same thing. Right. Now this is where it kind of changes, and it does. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult, but it's still not tough. We come back up to that first chord again, and we have 1 and 2 and then on the downbeat of 3, we're going to take our pinky and we're going to put it on the 8th fret of the high E string and play that note. So what it is we just have like a second melody that's in here. So and we move down to the next chord just like we did before. We're going to do the same thing. This time our pinky is going to pick up the 7th fret of the high E string. And we're going to move that shape down again, so we're at the 5th and 3rd fret. And this part right here is by far the most difficult part of it. So we hit the open low E and the high E string together, then to the B string. Then our first finger is already there on the 3rd fret of the high E. So we're going to pick this 3, 3rd finger to the 5th fret, then our first finger back to the 3rd fret, and then down a half step to the 2nd fret, and then finally ending on the 3. Oh my gosh. So when I play that, I'll usually do like a hammer on and a pull off there, just to kind of a little bit of flair to it, and it kind of puts a little bit of like almost kind of a Spanish guitar kind of a vibe to it. I really dig Spanish guitar and classical guitar too. I'm not real good at playing it. But I dig it, and I like a lot of the stuff that I hear in that. The closest, when I was talking about Malagueña earlier, the closest I got to it was just I did that, which is a really, really easy finger thing to do too. I should have included that in here today, but I didn't. All right, so the Sailorman's Hymn, the whole thing. I'm going to play it just a little slower. So at tempo, it's about and that's it. So that particular riff is like from that song is like the intro, and then it's also the verse. So it's a really cool song. Again, Camelot, a lot of you probably never heard of them, but you should really check them out. They're really awesome. They have pretty big discography. If you actually pull up their entire discography, the first 2 albums they did were really low budget with a singer that wasn't too great. But then starting on their 3rd album, which is called Siege Perilous, that album all the way through album called Poetry for the Poison featured a singer, Roy Khan, and in my opinion, he's the best in metal for sure. But I mean, the guy can sing anything. He's just incredible. And then he left the band, and they got a new guy who's a good singer too, and they still write really great music. But I really have a soft spot for Roy Khan, and Roy Khan's the one that sings on this Sailorman's Hymn and on the Coldest Winter's Night one that we looked at too. Great singer. So if you haven't checked them out, check them out. They're really good band. And they're it's kind of weird is that the guy who started the band, the guitar player, is from Florida, and the band's like, they're listed as that they're from Florida, but all the other members of the band are from like outside of the United States. Like the keyboardist is German, and I'm not sure about the drummer. They got a new drummer, and I don't know where he's from, but or I think the bass player is an American too. Yeah, but the drummer and the keyboardist, and then they have like a couple of different female backup singers and stuff that are all European. Like the gal that sings for Arch Enemy does it and stuff. It's pretty cool band. But anyway, enough of my plug on Camelot. Yeah, so those are some really good sounding, not too terribly difficult to play fingerstyle riffs that I hope that you got something out of it, and that it was helpful to you. This just kind of goes to show, like when the other day, I didn't do a real great job of explaining this the other day when I did the one that, like the songwriting one. I should just not have done it that day. I wasn't feeling right, but I did it anyway, and it was kind of a disaster. But yeah, you can just take any of those dyad shapes and play them like anywhere, and just play open strings around them. And it just sounds really good, especially if you're using those third shapes. So this is a minor third, and then that'd be a major third. So as you work up with it, like up and down playing those, you can hear when you're doing it, if you're doing the right shape. Because if you play a major when it should be a minor, or vice versa, it's not going to sound bad. It's just going to sound weird, and you should be able to pick that out. All right, so we got a few more minutes left. Let's do some questions. Oh, great, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate that. Let's do a little bit, little Q&A here. So nobody has any questions or anything? It doesn't necessarily have to be about about finger picking or what we went over at all. Just any guitar related questions are good. Rhythms and repair with D. I like that. I tried strumming over strings and muting. I'm too hard yet. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Uncle D's Guitar Garage, like that too. Riffs, rhythm, and repairs. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that one. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions or anything, then we can wrap this up. But I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming out here. If you like the content I'm doing, hit that hit that thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave comments, all that kind of stuff. It just really helps them to know that I'm doing a good job and stuff, and that I can keep doing this for you guys. This has been a blast. When I mute all the strings, I usually push too hard. So are you talking about like muting like this, like on that we did a while back? Is that what you're referring to? Thank you. It had a couple of weeks. Had to tell you. Oh yeah, well great. That's a good one. I really like that. I got to remember that one. I wish. You would think that I'm sitting here at my desk, there'd be something to write on or write with. I hope I don't forget it. But I guess it'll be in the comments. I can just like check it later and write it down. Okay, yeah. So if that's happening when you're muting like that, then yeah, you're definitely pressing too hard. So just practice it first. I mean, it kind of depends on what it is that you're playing. If you're like, if you're like playing a chord like this and then you want to mute, I play the chord and then I just take my middle finger and bring it in. All you have to do is touch the strings. So they're just muted like that. If you press just slightly too hard, then you actually hear the fretted note. If you press too light, sometimes you'll end up hitting like a natural harmonic too, which can sound weird or it can sound cool depending upon what it is you're doing. As a matter of fact, my strumming in general blows. All right. Well, maybe that's something that we can do in one of these is just kind of work with some general rhythm and strumming concepts. Oh, you'll get there. It's just repetition, man. If I can learn how to play guitar, anybody should be able to learn how to play guitar. I had, nothing special about me. I had no, raw, undiscovered talent. I had to work my butt off to be able to do anything because nothing came easy or natural for me. Now after now when I go to, it's like if I go to play something new now, it's not like, it's like really hard because I have a lot of experience playing, but it was really tough in the beginning. This is a Takamine. I can't remember the model. It says in here somewhere. In EG2C. I bought this brand new in like 92 or 93. And it's been a really great guitar, but the top is starting to warp. I need to get a bridge doctor to kind of suck the top back down because when you get up under the higher frets, the action's like is kind of shit. Yeah, I like it. Takamine. I mean, they're just like anybody else. They have if you really want to spend thousands of dollars on a guitar, they've got one you can buy for that kind of money. But I've never played one of their real high end ones. This guitar was like, I don't know, it was like $700 I think back then. But if you've got if you're looking for an acoustic guitar and you've got the funds that you can afford to spend a good chunk of change, I would get a Taylor. Even their more, they've got ones that are in the thousands, and then they've got ones that you can get one for under $1,000. Even their cheaper ones are great. They play really nice, they sound really good, and they stay in tune like nothing else. I have a student that's got a really, really nice Taylor that he paid like $2,500 for, and he's let me borrow it a couple of times for studio work. And it's an amazing instrument. I love it. I hope to get one day, but I kind of doubt it. Carlo Robelli, same on my Carlo. I've never even heard of that. But there are DXL is like 500, but they're small. So that's like the baby Taylor or whatever. They're like a smaller, like 3/4 size. They still sound really good. I mean, they're good for traveling. I wouldn't want to be my only guitar and have to play something that small all the time. But my student that has the high end Taylor, he's got one of those too for when he travels, and it sounds really good too. With what they pay me, that's right. Yeah, if I start saving now, I should be able to buy me a really nice high end Taylor, for my 134th birthday or something. Martin, yeah, I like Martin guitars, but I've had some experiences with some of them that had issues and they were really, really hard to fix. But yeah, they do sound really good. Gibson makes some really good acoustic guitars too. I had another student this guy makes a lot of money. He's some kind of a tech guy for like Wells Fargo, so he has a ton of money, and he wanted an acoustic guitar, so he bought them all online. He bought a Taylor, a Gibson, and a Martin, so he could play them all side by side, and he kept all of them because he could afford it. He said he liked the Gibson the best. Yeah, baby Martin. Yeah, like I said, they're more like kind of a travel guitar or something for a kid or whatever. But yeah, personally, I really like Taylor. But this Takamini's been a good guitar too. And I've got this, and then I've got another. In fact, the day when I was showing you guys my gear, I have this other acoustic guitar that's really cool that I didn't show you. It's a Charvel acoustic guitar. So like they only made them for a couple of years, and it's really cool. I never even knew they even existed, but I found it in a pawn shop. It needs a lot of work, but it's pretty sick. All right. So again, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you like the content, hit the thumbs up, leave comments, do all that kind of stuff. Subscribe to the channel. Download the tabs. All that kind of stuff really helps. For me to retain my job. They proud of them Gibson acoustic. Yeah, I can't remember the model he got. I think it was called a Songbird or something like that. It was a really nice guitar. I really liked it, but I still, out of all three of them, I thought the Taylor was, the best. I really dig him. Yeah, Gibson Les Paul Special acoustic version. All right. Well, again, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And yeah, last week wasn't here, but next week I'm going to, start to try to get back into the swing of things and, be coming here, 2 or 3 times a week. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great night and a good rest of your week and all that jazz. And I will see you guys next week.